My name is Melissa Novock, and I'm a victim specialist with the FBI in Detroit. I'm here with my colleague Nicole McGee, and she'll introduce herself. But we work together on a squad that it's the Violent Crimes Against Children squad. We connect and cover multiple crimes from international kidnapping to CSAM, which is production of child pornography or distribution or receipt of the same, as well as human trafficking. And we kind of, tag team these topics. So let me start with, I'm going to cover some human trafficking stuff. And I like to keep things somewhat simple so that as parents, as humans, and as children, we can understand it, because for so long we have kind of put the context that human trafficking is something out there. It doesn't happen here in Michigan. It doesn't happen in the city of Southfield. It only happens in perhaps certain areas or other countries. So I'm going to demystify some of those myths. Let's start out. I always call it hidden in plain sight, because it's, as I said earlier, it's been here, but we need to identify it. And when we identify it, what can we do as both law enforcement and members of the community to tackle that crime? Human trafficking is simply the exploitation of a human being for the purposes of gaining money or something else of value. In the state of Michigan, when you have someone who has not yet reached the age of 18, and they are being exploited via the purposes of sex and or labor, that would fall under the statutory definition of trafficking. If they are over the age of 18, again legally, and we won't get too into the weeds with that, but you need to prove an element of force, fraud, or coercion. And that's important because that will help us identify what trafficking is. So force would be that of something exactly as you might think physical force. A beating of someone, a maintaining control. It's the power that we call it, the power and control wheel. But once you have a victim, you exert your power and you keep it, usually by force of rape or something like that. And I want to say, if anyone is listening and myself or Nicole speak of something that triggers you, please take care of yourself. Connect with a supported individual that you trust. Or even, there are resources that we could share as well to make sure that if you are triggered, you are supported, either via yourself or your children. We always would like to put safety first. But back to the trafficking piece. Once I give the definition, I'll talk a little bit more plainly about it. But force could be, again, physical force or manipulation. We talk about fraud, which is that of basically selling a dream, right? A lot of victims reply to something online or to an offer that they've been given to come and work at a place, to take photos for something, but it's not exactly that at all. They are tricked, basically. Again, it's the selling of a dream into doing something else. And coercion is that of threat or force. So simply put, if I meet someone and I'm dating someone, and then they take, we're going out, they take me to a party or something like that, we're dating for a couple of weeks, and they say, you know what, if you really love me, if you're really into this, you're going to do X, Y, or Z, which could mean take photos that they're going to share with someone, do things of sexual explicit nature with someone, and then they say, if you don't do that, I'm going to publish these photos that I have of you. I'm going to put them online, or I'm going to hurt someone in your family. I know where your sister goes to school or your mom. So I say all of that, one, because lots of times within the context of trafficking, we tend to victim blame, as of how did they get into this? They're really not victims, and why don't they leave? Again, it's a power and control dynamic. With human trafficking, let me be clear, there are two types. In the media and within newspapers, online platforms, we talk a lot about sex trafficking, which I was just kind of going over. There is also the arena and area of labor trafficking. We've covered some of those cases. I know, though, in other parts of Michigan, they are, a little bit more prevalent, such as maybe in the UP, where you have different businesses being run out of warehouses, hair braiding salons, restaurants, nannies who are not funded properly or withheld documents if they've come perhaps from another country and legal status is an issue. Another context would be in exotic dance clubs or strip clubs. And that is a venue where actually both sex trafficking and human trafficking sex trafficking and labor trafficking can occur, because both of those elements, one's being forced to work, maybe extended hours, it's not what someone signed up for, and then money is taken from them and there's an exchange of sex, of course. A lot of people in the community or families or within here will say, how do we know if someone's being human trafficked? Well, the first thing is, we always say there's an issue of vulnerability. So who might be vulnerable? Well, someone who has previously been sexually assaulted or abused. Over 94% of women and boys, girls and boys who are victims have previous sexual abuse. The other thing is someone might identify in the LGBTQI plus community. I'm learning that, trying to stay up on that. Or someone said you could identify within the queer community. That covers everything. But that is a vulnerable population because their families may have isolated them. They may not feel comfortable. They then go to an online platform, such as the dating apps and whatnot, and they may meet someone. And unfortunately, some of those interactions do not go well and they turn criminal. There could be sexual assaults involved. And again, remember I talked about earlier, they could hold those photos or sexually explicit videos, which will tie into what Nicole will talk about in a little bit, but they then can use that. And it may be sextortion, it may be some online exploitation, or it could turn into trafficking. We've had some of those cases. Other vulnerable, a big one that we see a lot is young girls coming into or who are in the foster care system. So if you and I just want to say here, within the city and within the state, there are predators who will prey upon children online, but even those young children who are in NGOs or social service agencies. So if you are in the community and you're around any of these places, young people will go out and they are approached. So my point is, if someone comes to you with something, believe our children. If a lot of children, they're sexually abused when they're younger, they're not believed. And I just have to put that out there because that then could lead to perhaps they're going to meet other people that engage them in trafficking and so on and so forth. That will go on. The last thing I'll talk about before we turn it over is what are some myths? What are some myths within the topic of human trafficking? Because again, it's not some big thing that we see perhaps in the movie Taken. A lot of people refer to that. Two big words when I talk about trafficking are vulnerability, like I just spoke about, and grooming. So here's the thing. Back in the day, a lot of people would work what we would call the track or outside. Everything now is online. So as a parent, this is not to scare you or alarm you, but you should know who your children are dealing with online. Nowadays, children like to put everything online, as do some adults, which I don't recommend that. But my point is, they meet people, they say that they're friends. Children online, there's really no trust, or they trust everyone, I should say. They have sort of this open policy of if that person on the other end of the webcam says that they're 16 just like me and they live 2 counties down or 2, blocks down, then that's exactly who they are, and that's false. So you should always identify as a safety measure who that other person on that computer is with. But my point of that is your vulnerability is expressed online. There's a no holds barred, there's not a lot of privacy, and children, both boys and girls, are connected with initial perpetrators online. One myth, again, is that it's only girls who are victims. False. Okay, girls, yes, primarily
it's
are
the majority of what
the
we
majority.
see, but
Yeah,
it's not.
right. But boys are victims too. Maybe it's not always reported. Maybe again it's through sexual assault. Maybe it's through a LGBTQ dating website, or those who identify as gay website, and then or via what are called sex parties or something like that. Trafficking, again, remember the two key words: grooming and vulnerability. Okay, grooming, just to elaborate, is what we would call like a trauma bond. So if they meet you in an unfortunate circumstance, or if they gain your trust, that's how a perpetrator will continue to get to know you. Where do you like to go? Who your family members are? Where can we hang out? And then build that trust to then use that again and manipulate you. And I think there might, another myth too is that you do not have to cross state lines in order for it to be the crime of human trafficking. That would be smuggling, or perhaps another criminal violation. But trafficking can happen in one's own home. Unfortunately, we've seen cases where family members, parents, cousins, or very trusted individuals do exploit their own family members. So it doesn't have to be a stranger. Again, more often than not, it's someone you might know or that has been groomed. And should you, just my last point before I turn it over to cover the other topic is, at the FBI, we have a very dedicated group of agents, victim specialists, other support staff that do work kind of along with the public. We operate on leads. If you are listening, there's the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which you can call to report a tip. And again, you don't have to know everything about a case. If you suspect something, I know Crime Stoppers is very good about saying if you see something or feel something, say something. Those in the community and within our own family, we know best when something is off. Or if you work for Comcast and you go to a home and you see something suspicious. If you're a medical professional, and I'll talk about reporting later, but on our squad, when we get a lead from a local agency or a state partner, or another federal partner, or the National Human Trafficking Hotline, we work to investigate the case, possibly recover a juvenile, and we have a good set of NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations, or 501c3s that we work with. So that I know I went on a bit about that, so I want to turn it over to Nicole about the online part, because that's the trafficking, but online it's a very volatile thing.
Again, I'm Nicole McGee. I'm a victim specialist with the FBI Detroit office, and we work together. So Melissa did touch on a lot of the things that I could say, but she did an excellent job explaining it, so it makes my job easier. But one of the things that I want to say is, when it comes to cyber safety, it is important to know what your children are doing and that type of thing. The problem is, any self-respecting parent knows that's almost impossible to know everything they're doing, though we may make a valiant effort. So do whatever you can. But what I try to encourage parents to do is to instill your children with safety measures and information ahead of time. That's where the key is going to be, because they know what they're doing. Like, we didn't have phones and things when we were younger, but what we did have is the will to get away with stuff. And so that's how kids are today. So where there's a will, there's a way. They know that their parent is looking for this app, so they're going to use 3 other sneaky apps. That's just what children do. That being said, you have to instill in your children that they have to make good decisions when it comes to being online. As Melissa stated, do not friend people you don't know. People that, well, I think that he or she, or he's cute or she's pretty or whatever the situation is. And they say, well, they don't look like they would be dangerous, so I'm sure they're fine. That is how traffickers get the inroad. They are looking for, as Melissa stated, a vulnerability. If you have a child who tends to be on the shy side, or tends to be, a child that isn't as socially connected as other children, then the predator is going to reach out. They may reach out to 15, 20 young people a day, and they're only looking for one or two that is going to respond to their gesture. So they may reach out and say, hi, you don't know me, but I really think you're cute. Now, if you get several that are like, get out of my DMs, I don't know you, they're not their victim. But if they get one or two that are like, really, thank you, I appreciate that, then they know that that is the inroad that they can then exploit. So you have to teach your young people, do not fall for things like that. Don't be so vulnerable, and the term that the children use is thirsty, that you would go ahead and respond to every person that will reach out to you, because a lot of times predators are looking for people and young people to do just that. The other thing is, you want to make sure that your child understands the dangers that can go along with what they put online. They can put something online, think that it's just going to be, a Snapchat thing where it disappears, or lock it, or there's several different apps at this point. And they think it's just there until somebody views it and then it goes away. That's not necessarily true. There are screenshots. There are so many different things that predators can use, to the point that they can exploit you later. So like you think that it's gone, and then they'll come back and be like, hey, I got this picture of you. Either pay me, give me more pictures, or I'm going to disseminate this to your school, or you're gonna come work for me. Whatever it is, and it can quickly go from an online situation to a trafficking situation or a sextortion situation, and it's very serious. So please inform your young people that they have to be safety oriented. They really do need to watch who they're talking to. Don't talk to people that they're not aware of or don't know in person. Don't respond to people just because they give you a compliment. Help them to understand that they are more than any validation they can get from somebody online, and that they are worth keeping safe. And it's not that they know everything. I'm an adult and I don't know everything. So this isn't a lecture to give to them to say, want, because most kids are not going to listen. You just say, look, you make good decisions. I trust you as a responsible young person. You have to look out for safety for yourself, because I'm not going to always be around. So it's just really, really important that they understand how to stay safe online, and the fact that, and last thing, if they find themselves in a situation where somebody is trying to exploit them, or somebody, is trying to blackmail them, or whatever it is, please teach them that it is okay to tell you. It's okay to tell the social worker at school or whoever, because a lot of times they're able to continue with the exploitation because they scared the children into believing that anything that's going to happen from them sharing these videos or whatever is way worse. So then they don't want to tell, because it's like, well, that's the end of my life at school. But in the meantime, they're being psychologically abused, mentally abused, emotionally abused, and sometimes this goes on for months, if not years, before we find out that this young person is being exploited. So please let them know, look, it doesn't matter how bad it is or how bad you think it is. Let me know, or another adult know, so that we can try to get to the bottom of this, report it, and try to figure out how we can keep you safe from here forth. But the number one thing is to try not to become involved in it in the first place, or give a predator an opportunity to exploit anything that you're doing. So
I was just going to say too, just sharing, if they do come to you, try not to erase any images
Correct.
or messages. And also do not produce any of those images again and share them. Like Nicole said, let local law enforcement know, or if anyone does have a tip or report or is a victim of sextortion and or trafficking, you could call 1-800-CALL-FBI.
correct.
Should you have any questions or any tips to report, and or if you need any other resources.
Yeah, and with Melissa and I being the victim people, we're victim specialists, and we don't just handle crimes against children and trafficking and exploitation crimes. We do handle whatever federal crime comes our way, but you're always welcome to call 1-800-CALL-FBI, be connected to the Detroit office, and they can get in touch with Melissa or myself at any time. Melissa Novock, Nicole McGee, and we will direct you to the right person that you need to speak with, or disseminate the information to the squad where it needs to go if there's something that you want to report and you're concerned, especially about your own child.